I'll fill you in on what my day has entailed here in a moment. Gail says she got to work, but she'll be listening as always. Soon as she gets off at 8 a.m. Okay. Well, Gail, I wonder where you are. And then there's me, there's Carrie and Susan and Tamara and Concha and Paula. A lot of think tank people getting in here very early. Love to see that. I hope everybody is doing well. But I got like at least five questions to answer from people this evening. 5 questions I'm very excited about. There's Cherie. Yo, Cherie. Anna, how are you? Going to be talking about the special Steve Pankey interview that'll be coming up soon. I want to fill you in a lot more on that now that I know when it's going to come out. And hello, Heather and Ann. Now that I know it's going to come out Monday, and just some a conversation I had today. So it is 9 o'clock, so let's get this started. Looks like we're looking good. I love how YouTube does the closed captioning now. I'm so impressed by that. That just blows my mind. Jasmine, how are you? Yes, it's October 30th, 2019. I hope everybody is prepared for Halloween. What I will be doing is I will be going over to my brother's place 15 minutes from here, 20 minutes from here in Largo, Florida. And I'll be just sitting out there in his front yard, in his driveway with him, and watch as the trick-or-treaters come by. We'll be just chilling. I'm sure I'll be eating some candy and all sorts of stuff. Carol, how are you? So that's my plan. My brother and his wife get easily over 300 trick-or-treaters every year. It's crazy. It's insane. It really is. And it's always cool to be over there. It has a really good vibe to it, especially since I just get to sit there and eat somebody else's candy, and we'll just, BS the whole time, and it'll be a beautiful evening. It's not supposed to rain or anything. So, Shelly, how are you? So that's what I'll be doing. No, I won't be dressing up. I won't be going to any parties or anything like that. Just going to be a regular, kind of laid back type of Halloween. Michelle, how are you? So that's what I'm planning for tomorrow. I'm also planning to see my personal trainer. Haven't seen him for a while. I'm going to be seeing him tomorrow at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to seeing Blake. He's a really good guy. I haven't seen him in a while. We have a lot to catch up on. And then on top of that, do a little exercising, talk about, my fitness for the rest of the year, and then starting off in 2020 on the right foot. Michelle says, send me some candy, Ed. Michelle, I don't have any candy. Sorry to say, I don't have any for you. My brother and his wife probably have plenty, but I do not have any. What do I have in my refrigerator now? I have chicken wings, and I have some yogurt, and I got chocolate milk, and I got cereal, and I got tuna, and I got rice and some things, and I got some ice cream sandwiches. No candy. Bree, how are you? Good to see you. But so that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. In addition to finishing up Friday's episode, which is not quite done yet. I worked on the long interview. This Friday's episode's going to be about 2 hours and 50 minutes long, something like that. Maybe a little shorter than that, but definitely over 2.5 hours long. Long interview, and I'll be talking about that case, of course, as we usually do later in the program. Just some other things that are coming up. You should know that the next 4 weekends, so this coming weekend, which would be like November 2nd, and then November 9th, and then November 16th, and then November 23rd, I'm going to be playing disc golf 4 weekends in a row. it's my chance to get this done. Kind of, this will be my last playing of the year. And I won't play again until January. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you see me being a little quiet on social media, particularly Facebook, over the next 4 weekends, you'll understand why. Kind of loaded up on tournaments late in the year this year. As you maybe can probably tell, I played end of August, and then I went to Pennsylvania. I came back, and then right after Shay was here, I played in a tournament. And then I play up in Floral City, and then I played another tournament here in Tampa. And then the next 2 weekends I have tournaments here in the Clearwater area, and then I have a tournament, a 1-day tournament in Ocala, and then I'm going to go up to Floral City again. So got a lot of playing to do. I think I'm ready to do it. I've been playing decently well. So that's my forecast, disc golf forecast. So once again, for all of you, I know you're used to seeing me on the weekends. Just be a little quieter than usual because I'll be out on the disc golf course. Let's move on to this. The poll from last week's episode involving the Squeaky Wheel Tour, and as you already know, we incorporated the disappearance of Regina Marie Boss into all of that. I'm glad that we could do that. I'm glad that we got to revisit that disappearance. And you should know that episode has set a new download record for Unfound. And it did it quite easily. I didn't expect that. I don't know. It very well may be that people downloaded the new episode and then maybe downloaded the old episode back from 2016 to maybe compare what I said back then to what I said now. That's very possible. I really don't know. I have to really get deep into the numbers to look at that. But that was a little bit of a surprise. But thanks to all of you, that is the case. I'm glad to see we set another record there. Regarding the poll, a majority of people in the Unfound podcast discussion group decided that Regina Marie Boss was not caused, her disappearance was not caused by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend did get some votes, but a majority said that it was somebody else. Now, that could be a friend, that could be a stranger. And I will tell you, in the think tank on Sunday night, we had one of probably our best discussions regarding that. Between myself, I will be frank, me taking up that a stranger, my position was that a stranger did it, and most of the think tank members said they believed that it was somebody that Regina knew. Maybe her boyfriend, probably not, but somebody that she knew that caused her disappearance. And so we had some really good back and forths and some theories and what if scenarios and things. And if that sounds like something that interests you, you should join on Patreon, contribute at least $12 a month, and on Sunday evenings you can talk to me and the other think tank members one-on-one about your theories regarding the disappearance that is covered that week. And it's the only thing of its kind out there. We're the only program anywhere that does something like that, where after the episode comes out, listeners, Patreon, premium Patreon members, and myself, we get together and we really get deep, deep, deep into the details. And usually the discussions go easily over an hour. So, and as Sheree is saying, really great discussion. Sheree is, of course, a member there. And if you want your opinions and your theories to matter, you should join the think tank, because much of what we talk about there, I bring back to the guest for that episode and talk to them about it. All right, to tell them what some of the people think. So there you go. So once again, the Squeaky Wheel Tour, that episode did really well. and a majority of the people decided in the group that somebody who wasn't Regina's boyfriend is the one who caused her disappearance. Paula's saying, give the think tank a try. Yes, Paula is a member of the think tank as well. Let's move on to this. Of course, being that it's in the end of the month and almost the beginning of the month, the next newsletter will be coming out this weekend. I plan to work on it on Friday and get that done before I have to play disc golf this weekend. So if you are on the mailing list, please be looking for it. And if you'd like to get the newsletter and you haven't, please contact me privately and through email at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Give me your address, your email address, and I will make sure you get on the newsletter list. And of course, like I said, it's the end of the month, beginning of the next month, it'll be happening. Carrie says it's a seriously great way. She's talking about the think tank. The think tank is a seriously great way to gain insight into disappearances. I think it is. If you are the type of person who wants to become, I don't know, better educated, have more insight, more intuition regarding disappearances in general, I think that the think tank is a great place where you can do that. And once again, it's a very small group. I want to keep it that way. I think we could stand a few more people in there, but it's much more one-on-one than, for example, this program where we have a lot more viewers. That's right. As Cherie says, Think Tank also helps the families with ideas and direction. Yes, that is true. Okay, so we got the newsletter coming out. Next, I have to give a shout out to my assistant, Emily, and then my friend Anthony over at the Crime Blogger 1983 blog, that we've been able to work a bit ahead on Unfound, and I've already been able to do the interviews for the next few weeks' episodes. Now, this Friday, as you probably already know, Jael Hamblen will be the disappearance that we're covering this Friday. On next Friday will be the disappearance of Bradley Allen. And then the week after that, this is a case that Anthony brought to me that he's covered on his blog already. We will be covering the disappearance of Tim Guy. So we've got some interviews that have already been done, all great ones. I can't wait for you to hear them. I'm guessing that they're all disappearances that you haven't heard of yet, so you'll be probably hearing about them for the first time. So, high five to Emily. That is certainly true, Cherie. So I know I don't usually give a forecast like that, but because usually we're not in that situation. But when we are, I like to tell all of you about that and give you a heads up of what you can be looking for in the coming weeks. So once again, Jael Hamblen this Friday, we'll be talking about her disappearance later in the program tonight, later in this show. Next Friday will be Bradley Allen. And then the week after that will be Tim Guy. Okay? So, like I said, Emily found Jael's case and Bradley's case, and Anthony brought to me Tim Guy's case. Trina, thank you. Mary Lyle contacted me. She emailed me out of the blue last week, and I got to talk to her on the phone. It must have been Friday. And it was good to talk to her. I hadn't talked to her since probably March, and really can't go into all the details and things, but you should know that she continues to have discussions with the state police in New York and the Albany police regarding Susie's disappearance. And they're still working hard on it. I'm sure by now most of you know about how there are these college students up in Albany who continue to work on Susie's case. So it sounds to me like they're going back over some information. The police are, and so she wanted me to send her some of the information that I had collected. I think that she had like a computer crash or something like that, and she wasn't sure where. She didn't lose the information, but she wasn't sure where it was that I sent her from a long time ago, and so she just wanted me to send it to her again, and that's what I did. So, hey, Sherlock, what's going on? Good to see you tonight. Um, so I got to talk to her. I think I said it was March. I know that it was. I think the last time I talked to Mary is when I was looking for a new place to live, and of course, all you know, I've been here since May. So I'm thinking it was like March was the last time I spoke to her, and so it was good to talk to her, and I'm glad that um, things continue to turn regarding Susie's disappearance. I really don't know if they're any closer to finding out what happened or anything like that, but that she is still having discussions, periodic discussions with the police, is a very good sign, especially since the disappearance is going to be 22 years old this coming March, which is crazy. Which is crazy. So I got to talk to Mary, and I'm always reminded how much I like her every time I talk to her. We just have a really good conversation, not just about Susie's case, but a lot of different things. So it was good to talk to her. And I also need to give a shout out to all of you. I know many of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you know that on Monday we had a very complex situation arise. If you will remember, the Ellen Sloane disappearance, which we covered last year in 2018. And I had Ellen's daughter, Brienne Edwards, on. And I've continued to keep in contact with Brienne, as I tried to do with all of the guests from Unfound. She contacted me on Monday to tell me that her brother had gone missing in New Orleans. And if, was there anything that I could do? Maybe it must have been, it wasn't Monday, it was Sunday. Because I remember thinking, had I been playing disc golf this past weekend, that would have, been tough. But it was Sunday that she contacted me saying that her brother was missing in New Orleans. He had gone there. He didn't live there. Wasn't there, but he went there on a trip with friends. Maybe it was a business trip of some type. And he was a little drunk, and he was with his friends, and he said he was going to walk to this casino. Well, he never made it back to his hotel room and missed his flight. And I'm just going to say it this way. His idiot friends left New Orleans without him. And so she emails me and, says, Ed, is there something I can do? Tell me what I got to do. I don't want to make the same, I don't want to make any mistakes. Of course, she has already lost her mother to a disappearance. And so now here she is, the same situation, dealing with it. And of course, this one isn't close to where she lives. Of course, Ellen disappeared from Montana. This is way down in Louisiana. What do I need to do? So we're going back and forth through emails, back and forth. I made a map up of where he would have been walking, and I posted that. She sent me some pictures. I posted them in the group. I posted them on the page. A lot of people got engaged with this, and I have to. Hello, Karen. And I have to admit, I felt pretty bad. You know what we think of when we think of drunk men walking the streets of a city late at night. Of course, a lot of people, if they believe in it, are going to think of the smiley face killer. Was Jake Sloane going to end up, in the Mississippi River or something like that? Because the casino that he was walking to was not too far from the river. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is not good. But you go through the process. You put the information together. I start giving her things to do, and I was checking Google. There was no news out. I said, you need to get his name in the news cycle. I kept Googling his name to see if anybody was talking about it. Nope. Nobody was talking about it. I told her, you have to find some way to get his name into the news cycle. You need to start contacting these TV stations and everything so his name will pop up if people do any searches on Google so it can get into the news cycle. Sherlock, I agree with you. Smiley Face Killer is total BS. It absolutely is. So we're doing this for about an hour. I'm trying to think of anything that she can do, once again, from my experience, and that's why she came to me. And luckily, fortunately, I'm not going to call it a miracle, but it ended up that Jake Sloane was alive. Now, what happened was that he was walking from where he was, and he was a little drunk going to that casino. He got mugged. He got his wallet stolen. He got his phone taken. But he was alive. He finally made it back to his hotel, and he is okay. All right, now, once again, he lost his credit cards and probably money and phone, but he is okay. And she told me that. I passed it along to all of you. And, that's a really, really good outcome. It could have been much worse. And, I hate muggers and everything else, but I'm just glad that they didn't kill him. And, even to the, they just took off with his stuff and he could walk away from it. So that was really something that was, happening very, very fast on Sunday morning. I'm trying to think on my feet and everything. And in the end, Jake Sloane is okay. I'm going to guess by this time he is back. Is he from Montana? I don't even know. But he's back home. His wife and everybody, they were all very, of course, very, very worried. I was worried. But he's alive. He's back. I'm guessing he's back with his family now. And all he has to do is get a new phone and cancel all those cards. So, but this is how quick it can happen. You just kind of go along, living your life. Of course, in Brianne's case, she's lost her mother to a disappearance. She's probably thinking, what are the odds of me having another disappearance in my life? And then, boom, her brother goes missing. So, but afterwards, she let me know Jake was found. She deeply thanked me. I know that she deeply thanked everybody, I think, on the page for everybody getting involved and people that were sharing Jake's picture and information around. Of course, we do have a lot of listeners in Louisiana. We've covered quite a few disappearances in Louisiana. Rebecca Gary, Shane Fell, Ashley Eifert all come to mind. Is there any more than that? But, Clinton Nelson, right? Or Clinton Nelson. So, we have listeners there. And in the end, it was Jake himself who brought himself home. But I'm just glad at how responsive on a Sunday. I know people have other things to do, church and golf and everything else, that so many people got involved very quickly to do this. I just want to, thank all of you for being as responsive as all of you were, okay? I hope we never have to do that again. But, and as you know, we do post, I post, other people post recent disappearances in the group and on the page to let everybody know. But as you would expect, when guests are concerned, former guests of Unfound, you come to me, they get put right to the front of the line. And I'm going to go the extra mile for them. If they call me, email me, tell me about one of their family members who's gone missing, I know that I'm going to leap into action pretty much no matter what I'm doing. And luckily, once again, this Sunday, I wasn't doing anything on Sunday. I wasn't at a disc golf tournament. I wasn't on the road driving somewhere. I was just doing some work at home when she contacted me. So you never know when these things are going to happen. You just never know. And I think that even me going through with Brienne, going through the process, talking some things out with her back and forth through email, I think that even myself learned some things from it that I will be able to put into use next time. Of course, I hope there's not a next time. But if there is a next time, hopefully, we'll even be more responsive than we were this time. Michelle says, so glad he was found okay. I have a friend who lost her child and a cousin. Yeah, Paul, I just remembered my question. No, Paul, it's never too late to put a question in. Just type in your question right there. I will answer it. Promise. Michelle says, yeah, Ed is great at answering questions. Yeah, thank you. So that's what went on with Jake Sloane. And I am so happy for Brienne that her brother was found live and well. Maybe I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if he had to go to the hospital or anything for any bruises or cuts or anything, but he is alive and he was able to get himself back to the hotel, which I think is a very, very good sign. Let's take some questions. What do you say? We got 25 minutes into this program. I think it's about time we take some questions from people who posted them today. Karen asked me, I think she knows I've said some nice things about Las Vegas, where I used to live. And she asked me if I ever plan to move back there. I would say yes, Karen. I've talked about this with my friends. I've talked about this with my family. That I do anticipate one of these days down the road moving back there. Now, you may say, why would you ever want to do that? You live in Florida. I think many of you know where I live now, in a place probably, I couldn't afford to live without. My dad and I are splitting the rent, being that, he's come down here and he's going to actually be down here for a few months, probably starting in December. Live near the beach, yada, yada, yada. Why would you ever move back? And I think you have to understand that Las Vegas is a great city. Okay. And, I have a lot of memories from that city. I would say, even though I didn't move there until I was 27 years old, that I realized, looking back at it now, I had a lot of growing up to do when I moved to Las Vegas. Even though I had done a lot in my life to that point, I still had a lot of growing up to do. And so when I look back at Las Vegas now, I see it as a place that really kind of shaped who I am. Um, you know, so many interesting situations and experiences that I never could have could have ever expected to have growing up in Leechburg, Pennsylvania, which is like the opposite of Las Vegas. And, it just sticks with you. It just does. And, that's about it. I still keep in contact with many of the people who I got to know while I lived there, and I have lots and lots of friends who live there. And it's a fantastic town. There's always things to do. I have to admit, I miss going to some of the big casinos. I miss going to the sports books. I miss being able to go play poker once in a while. They have poker rooms here around, but you got to drive quite a ways, and it's just not the same. Once you've played, in a poker tournament at Caesar's Palace or at Mandalay Bay, playing in a tournament anywhere else is kind of a little bit of a letdown, just to be honest. So, there's a lot of things put together, a lot of great memories, a lot of friends, a lot of things to do, etc., etc., etc. And I would urge anybody, if you've never taken a vacation to Las Vegas, you should. And if you're thinking about moving away from wherever you live, Las Vegas, I think, is a very good choice. You'd be surprised. It's a fairly cheap place to live. Fairly. Gas prices, they're probably higher than they are in Florida, but not crazily so. Housing, fairly average, although it can boom and bust. Um, so there you go. So Karen, I am planning to do that, but I think that I wouldn't do that until my dad passes away. Um, so that will have to happen first before I start making, real solid plans about moving back there. Paula S. asks, any news on Peggy and Patty McDaniel, who ended up with a new name on the end of McDaniel? Paula, I've not been able to talk to their mother recently. Joyce, I haven't been able to talk to her recently. She's been, not she herself, but she's been going through some things. We kind of traded texts a few weeks ago, but like I said, she's been going through some things, not her personally. And so I'm just kind of letting those things play out. I hope to talk to her. Joyce, one of my favorite people who's ever been on the program. So I don't have any new information on that, Paula, and I don't know if I will get any new information on that anytime soon. But that's a very good question. My dad's doing great, Paula. His favorite football team, his alma mater, Slippery Rock University, they're undefeated. They're ranked 6th in the nation. He goes to all the games. My dad is doing fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks for asking. At 82 years old, just gets around, does his own thing. For an 82-year-old, he's in really good health, and I'm very fortunate to that. I'm not going to probably talk, Sherlock, I'm not going to probably talk about that until Tim's case is going to come out, which won't be for a couple weeks. I think if I bring it up now, that I think people maybe will forget it by the time the episode comes out. So I will release that information. I will be talking about that one probably in a couple weeks. Let's take another question. This is kind of a funny question from D. And if you don't know who D is the person who comes up with all of the camel pictures. She didn't do one today, unfortunately, but she always does the camel pictures on Wednesday. She asked me, when do I remember getting my first gray hair? Now, this is a funny question because, as you know, a woman who's a very, very close friend of mine was here, Shay, a month ago. It seems like she was here yesterday. And we were talking about gray hair while she was here. And she was like going through my hair and saying, man, Ed, you hardly have any gray hair. What's the deal? Carrie says D is a trip. D is certainly a trip, Carrie. And I told her, and this is true, but when my hair used to be real short, the gray hair, like back in here, very noticeable, very noticeable. But it seems like when I grow my hair long, all of the hair that hasn't grayed covers up those gray ones that are kind of underneath. It just seems to be that way. And I've even had people ask me who find out how old I am, and I'm 49 years old. Do you color your hair? What do you do? And I said, I don't touch my hair, and I would never touch my hair with any coloring at all, ever. I would never do that. So to answer your question, D, if you're watching tonight, I'm going to say my first gray hair. I can remember working at when I lived in Las Vegas. I worked at the Greek Isle, which isn't there anymore. And we were doing a magic show and a Rat Pack show. And I can remember a woman who I worked with, and I remember us standing in the production office one night. And I can remember saying something. I was standing there, and she was like behind me, and she goes, "Oh, look, Ed, you have a gray hair." And she was right. I'm going to say that was about 2007, something like that. So I would have been like 37 years old, something like that. Seems like yesterday. What a pup I was. But that's probably the first time. And I really have not added on too many since then. But that's not unusual. That's in my genetics. My biological father, who died when he was 78, most of his hair was not gray. And I have a brother, Michael, who is 18, 19 years older than I am. And most of his hair is not gray either. Now, my brother, Brian, he went real gray in his 30s. And uh, he does not have quite the head of hair that our biological father does, that my brother Michael does, that I do. Different genetics, still my full-blooded brother, but different genetics somewhere in there. So he got a different hair gene than the rest of us. But myself, my brother Michael, my biological father, all have kind of the same hair. That we have most of our hair, and it doesn't gray very easily. Sherlock says, and this is, you know who Sherlock is. Since doing these cases, I've got quite a few gray hairs ones now. Uh, I can see why that might be the case, Sherlock. I just don't know. Just the way things go. I think that if I had, if there is a relationship between stress and gray hair, as most people think there are, then I have to admit, except for one job, a 7-Eleven job that I had in Las Vegas, I haven't had many stressful jobs. They were a lot of work, a lot of time on my feet, whether it was, moving stuff, lifting stuff, driving long distances, etc. But I would not say that they were stressful. They were a lot of work, a lot of time put in, even 6 days a week things. But they were not stressful. So maybe that's helped. Maybe. But that's when I'm going to say, D, right around the age of 37 is when I got my first gray hair. Carrie says, I wish I could say I didn't get any gray until my 30s. Thanks, kids. Maybe they say kids can bring on gray hairs too. Heather says she found her first one 2 weeks ago. Well, Heather, the first one, trust me, once you see the first one, that people aren't going to see them for a long time. So you're just a youngster, Heather. I don't know how exactly old you are, but I know that you're a youngster. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, let's get to the main topic for, I think, tonight's show, being that we're about 37 minutes in. The Steve Pankey interview that I did over 2 weeks ago is going to come out this Monday, November 4th. Now, I think that I had kind of publicized that at least a few days ago, mainly for the reason that I don't want to leave all of you hanging. I think a lot of you who follow Unfound know that I did that interview, and you're probably wondering, why did he tell us he did this interview and it hasn't come out yet? And I don't want to make you feel like I'm leaving you, like I'm teasing something and, putting a carrot out there and making you run after it. I never want you to think that I'm doing that to you, okay? However, I also wanted to give myself and my assistants, Heather, Carrie, Cherie, Emily, and some of them are in here tonight, an opportunity to listen to the interview, us to work on the audio some, for them to give me feedback about what they think. Because, once again, this is a very unique situation. This isn't a regular episode. So I thought that maybe I should handle this a little bit differently, bring other people in, allow them to listen to the interview, let them have their own opinions, so I can kind of incorporate that when the interview is released. Okay, I thought that was important. I wanted to make this more of a team project than me just being able to give my own summation as I do at the end of the regular Friday episodes. And I think that all of them had some very good insights and things I, wouldn't have thought of. And, we've talked about it quite a bit behind the scenes, and they've been able to listen to it. The interview is 3.5 hours long, so each of them had to put in quite a bit of time, listening to it. The other reason that it's taken a little while is because I wanted to track down some of the people that Steve mentions in the interview. Those two people being a John Gates, who was a police officer in Greeley, Colorado at the time. He is now mayor of Greeley, Colorado. And he was one of the first police officers at the Matthews residence when, of course, the bulletin was put out there that Janelle was missing. Of course, this is the Janelle Matthews case, disappearance from 1984, and her remains were found this summer, July of 2019. And so I wanted to try to be able to contact him, and if he was going to speak with me, I wanted enough time to line up something and talk to him and be able to, determine, what he's saying, look at what Steve said, etc. The other person that I wanted to contact was Russell Ross. He was the guy who dropped Janelle Matthews off at her house that night. Well, coincidentally, Steve Pankey and Russell Ross used to work together. And Russell's name comes up quite a bit during this interview that, once again, is 3.5 hours long. And so it just took a little time. Once I figured out, John Gates, and he's the mayor, and I emailed him, he got back to me. He gave me a very long but polite no comment. And I will read his email that he sent. I will read the email I sent to him, and then I will read his response during the episode on Monday. Okay? So that's first. Well, today I got to speak to Russell Ross. Luckily, Shireen, you all know her. She's the one in blue during all of these YouTube shows. She has the power to kick anybody out of here if they get out of line. And I think most of you know that Shireen has been one of my assistants, has helped with the program for a long time. She was able to track down a good phone number for Russell Ross. There were a multitude out there. I'd say there were like 5 or 6 phone numbers that were attached to the Russell Ross that I was looking for. And Cherie managed to track down the correct one. I called him last Friday, and then I called him yesterday. And then he called me this morning. I was out with my brother Brian this morning. And then I called him when I got home, and we had a very, very good conversation. So this, once again, this time span between me doing the interview and now the interview going to come out this Monday has allowed all of this to happen. For some of my assistants to listen to the interview. What do they think? Analyze this. Us talk back and forth. Should Steve Pankey be a person of interest? Did he kill Janelle Matthews? Didn't he kill Janelle Matthews? Is there some sort of conspiracy to going up against him? Is he paranoid? Yada, yada, yada. All these things, all of these different discussions that we've had behind the scenes since right after Steve talked to me. And once again, the time span was spent tracking a couple other people down that I've already mentioned. I will have you know that Russell Ross and I had a very, very solid, good conversation today. Seems like a good guy. Seems to me like he does have some regrets. Had he been more aware, had he been paying more attention when he dropped Janelle off. So we talked about that, but we also talked about him knowing Steve Pankey, them working together. What was his impressions? So we covered a wide range of topics regarding everything resolving Janelle's disappearance and murder and Russell's contact his impressions of Steve Pankey. I say we talked for about 40 minutes. He answered every question that I asked. I'm not saying that he knew the answer to every one of them, but I think he was doing his genuine hardest to try to answer. Once again, 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And really, he has never been asked about, a lot of these things until recently. So what this episode on Monday is going to be, it's going to be a very, very bare bones episode. No Unfound news, none of those things that usually go along like a theme or anything with the regular Friday episodes. I'm going to open the program the way I usually do with a little paragraph. The music will play. I will give a summation how it came to be that I interviewed Steve in the first place. I will give a very quick rundown of what happened, what Janelle did that evening, how she got driven home, and the circumstances. And then I will go right into the interview, the recorded interview that I did with Steve. And then afterwards, I will read to you the email I sent to Mayor Gates and his response to me. I will then detail my notes that I took from talking to Russell Ross. And then to complete the episode, I will go through some of the ideas that I have along with what my assistants have had in their own impressions in listening to Steve Pankey's interview. That will be the episode. It's going to be long. I'm going to guess it's going to be about 4 hours long, something like that, because the interview itself is 3.5 hours. And as I think I told you when I did the interview, the first one of these shows that I did after, it's probably going to be then when the episode comes out next Monday. That'll have been 3 weeks since I did the interview. Well, the YouTube live show I did right after the interview, I think I told you. Steve Pankey did not evade any of the questions that I asked him. Okay? The interview was done on my terms, not on his terms. He came to me. And so I told him, if you're going to come to me, then we're going to do things my way. If I had gone to him wanting an interview, then he would have gotten to dictate the circumstances, because he came to me, was looking, he's looking to, show that he didn't kill Janelle. Then I get to set the rules. And you know what my rules are. I ask tough questions. I like to be in depth. I don't leave any rock unturned, to use a horrible cliche. And I can tell you truthfully, Steve did not evade any question. Now, it'll be up to you to determine whether he's telling the truth or not. But there were no questions like, well, I can't answer that. I'm not going to answer that. So you can judge that for yourself. I can tell you that, not to give anything away, but even today between Heather and Carrie and Cherie specifically, I think all of us together have our own beliefs regarding Janelle and Steve and all of this. And I'm not going to get into that until Monday. But even today, after talking to Russell Ross, and I think pretty much we're somewhat in agreement on a lot of the points regarding Janelle's disappearance and murder. Okay? And is that unusual? I don't know. I think that, we, of course, have disagreed on some theories. If you're in the think tank, you know that oftentimes I don't agree with the other members in the think tank, and that's fine. That's what it's for. But I think that regarding the entire case of everybody involved, I think all of us in the Unfound team, are pretty much in agreement, I think. But I will talk about that at the end of the episode on Monday. So there you go. Renee, how are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Carrie says in relating to her getting to listen to the interview, It was definitely different being at the jump before the interview and how much work goes into it all. Whole new appreciation. Thank you, Carrie. Heather agrees with Carrie. Paula, will that interview be a topic in the think tank or just the Friday episode? Paula, we will surely. Now, you'll have to wait a little while, but 6 days, as a matter of fact. But we will surely talk about the Steve Pankey interview in the think tank a week from this Sunday. It'll be November 10th, I guess. The November 10th think tank, you can guarantee, Paula, we will talk about Steve Pankey and Jl Matthews and everything else. And then we will also talk about the case for next week, which will be Bradley Allen. So, yes, the answer is yes, Paula. Interview date was the October 14th, right? So, yes, it'll be 3 weeks. But I had spoke to him about a week before, Carrie. Well, you know, the thing is, Carrie, you have to realize, maybe I should have pointed this out. I only talked to Steve Pankey on the phone once, and that was for the interview. Everything else was through email. So I have it all documented, how it all came together. And the proof that he came to me and I didn't go to him. So I only spoke to him on the phone once, and that was the time we did the interview, which is very unusual. Every other guest that has ever been on Unfound, you know, they're usually on the phone once, maybe not with Anthony recently, but just because we've kind of gotten to know each other, we know how each other ticks by this point. But all family members and people like that, they are on the phone with me a few times before they get on the program. But with Steve, one time on the phone, and we cranked the interview out. And as you should know, I've already told Steve that it'll be coming out Monday. Once again, fulfilling an obligation. I told him I would give him at least 2 days notice before the episode comes out. In this case, I gave him about 6. So, BA, sorry off topic, but did Thomas Brown City have a curfew for my... I have no idea, BA. That's a great question. I really don't know. Maybe, Heather, you might know that answer since I know you live near there and you know people that live there. Heather, maybe you know that answer. Yes, your birthday, Cherie. So that's what I have to say about the Steve Pankey interview. So we'll be having this Friday's episode that I'll be talking about here in a bit. Monday, the Steve Pankey interview, and it will be uploaded like everything else. It'll go to Podomatic, then it'll go to iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else that usually, you know, can download Unfound episodes from. And then still next Friday will be another episode. That'll be the disappearance of Bradley Allen. So once again, this is something special. It's a unique episode, and that's why it's not coming out on a Friday. So there you go. Hey, we've been busy. I know at one time Jeremiah, if you don't know who he is the guy who actually originally started the Unfound podcast discussion group. But one time he labeled me the hardest working man in true crime. And I don't know if that's totally true, but I don't think that there are too many podcasts out there, you know, that give you content every Friday and then mixing content on a different day of the week, especially when it's a 3.5 hour interview with a person of interest in a murder case. I don't know where you're getting anything like that anywhere else. I don't know, but and you have to remember, Steve Pankey came to me. So somewhere out there, he found the program and decided that he wanted to be on this program, and he wanted me to interview him. And in the end, you're going to have to determine what kind of guy he is and whether he actually murdered Jl Matthews or not. But I think that it shows how Unfound is getting out there, and it's just not getting out there, but somebody who once interviewed because they're innocent decides, you know what, I want to talk to that Ed Densel guy because I think he'll give me a fair shake. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. And I've already talked about my reasons. I think, of course, I am a missing persons reporter. But I think that I am a reporter and journalist first. So I think I have a responsibility when somebody like this contacts me that I think I have a responsibility to talk to that person. But only if I can conduct the interviews the way I want. And if the person is going to get into the interview and then is going to start evading questions and everything, I will cut the interview like that. And I told Steve that. I told him, you start him-hawing around and everything, I'm just not interested. I just don't need that. I don't need to waste my time doing that. So, but he went along with it. And so I give him all the credit regarding that. Once again, did he tell the truth? Up for you to decide. So that's how all went down. And I'd like to think that somebody who is looking to get their innocence out there comes to Unfound to do that. I think that gives a lot of credibility to the program, that on top of, I think, the credibility that it already has. All right. And I'd like to think that Steve believes that I kept my word regarding everything, that what we did, how I handled everything. I think that he would say that. So there you go. So there you go. So that's going to be this Monday. What time? It's probably going to be in the morning. I don't know if I'll wait to 2 o'clock or not on Monday. We'll just have to see. Sometime Monday. So that'll start your week off. Going to end your week this week, and then we're going to start your week next week. So there you go. Let's take another. All right, Laura, maybe let's stay on that for one more moment. Laura did ask me something in particular about the Steve Pankey interview, and I want to make sure I get this question right. Laura asked me, did you decide the deadline for other people mentioned in your interview with Steve Pankey that possibly didn't get back to you to say, I'm just going to do it? I think what she was saying is, how did I come up with November 4th as the date, not knowing for sure if I was going to contact these other people? Well, Laura, like I said, I think right when I started talking there about this program, this episode that's coming out, I think there was just a point where I had to say, you know what, we're going to have to bring this out. If we can't reach Russell Ross, if we can't reach Mayor Gates, then that's the way it goes. I mean, I'm not going to let those people hold the entire process hostage. Okay? I want to talk to them. I think it's important that I do talk to them. But if they don't want to talk to me, it's not like I'm going to hold, the interview forever. So at some point, you just have to pick a date and give a deadline and say, you know what? If we get it done before this deadline, great. If we don't, that's the way it goes. And I think we are very fortunate in this circumstance that I came up with a date and then these people did respond. And I got to talk to Russell Ross, for example, today. So, I'm not going to let other people dictate how the program is handled. In fact, I was just telling Heather and Carrie here a few days ago that my attitude is very much like Billy Bean's attitude in Moneyball, if you've ever seen that movie or read the book. Billy Bean's attitude is, I don't let the fans run my ball club. And for me, I don't let, these types of people who I'd like to have on the program dictate whether I'm going to release an episode or something or not. Okay? I'm not going to be, wait for them or anything else. I have a responsibility to you, the listeners, and but I love all of you, but as I'm sure all of you already realize, that I'm still, myself, along with getting advice from my assistants, in the end, I'm still the person that runs the program and has to make all the decisions. And it's not a democracy. Let's put it that way. When I came up with the idea of Unfound, the program was going to be, and I didn't, crowd test it or anything else. I just came up, this is the way it needs to be done, and that's just the way I'm going to do it. I didn't, give people choices. So it's just going to be done this way, and that's just the way it is. So when it comes to the question of, what Laura is asking, is that I'm just not going to let those, I'd love to have them, but I want volunteers, not hostages. And I'm not going to let good interviews be held hostage because we can't reach this person or that person. So, but I think it's great. I'm glad that, unfortunately, I didn't get much out of Mayor Gates, but Russell Ross could not have been more helpful. And so I think that's going to add a lot to Friday, or to next Monday's program. I'm glad it happened, but it easily could not have happened. And you know what? This interview with Steve Pankey still would have come out on Monday. Renee says, it's nice to have a podcast that puts more than just a Google search into it. I tell as many people as I can about Unfound. Renee, thank you. And yes, we don't do a lot of Googling here at Unfound, Renee. We just talk to the actual people themselves. Okay. Do I have anything else? Is there another question? First gray hair. Oh, okay. All right. One more question. It's going to come from Jill. And then we're going to move to this Friday. We'll talk about this Friday's case. Jill is asking me about Zachary Wilkes' car being found. This is a disappearance. I have to admit, I was not that familiar. The name is familiar to me, but I was not familiar with all of the circumstances. But he disappeared 2 years ago. He was driving from California to Las Vegas, but he was taking one of those backgrounds that I'm very familiar with, having lived in Nevada. And he never reached Vegas, and he was never seen again. They did some searches. They went along the route that he was supposed to drive, didn't see anything. And it was, of course, as all the mysteries we cover, all the disappearances we cover on Unfound, it was a big question mark. What the hell happened to him? And his car has now been found recently. And my understanding now is that the Vanish podcast, Marissa's podcast, had covered this disappearance sometime this year. But his car was recently found. It was found overturned along the route that he was supposed to be driving, and his remains were not in it. My understanding, it was in some, I didn't see any pictures, but it was in a culvert where water would run sometimes, when it rained. Once again, he was not in the car, but it looked like, the way I read the news stories regarding this, is that it's very possible that his car was wrecked or damaged before it went off the road. So the way I would interpret that is, did he in another car, bump? Was there some sort of road rage incident, and his car goes flying off, into this place where the car was not found for 2 years, even though they had searched for it back at the time. And Jill had asked me, what do I think about all of this? As you've all come to learn, and I've certainly come to know this, is that there's probably a lot more to the story than what we've gotten. I've not listened to Marissa's episode on it. Joe had just posted this question today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions and information that's going to come out now that the car has been found. And as I think you've learned with all of Unfound's episodes, you think you know a case, and then you hear me interview someone's mother, someone's brother, or usually, mostly women on Unfound, a sister, and there's a lot more to the case than you can get from a news article or even from Megan Good's site, charlieproject.org, or anywhere else. So I'm guessing that there's a lot more to this case than what we know. What does it mean when he wasn't found in his car? Could mean a lot of things. It could be that he did get, pushed off the road by another car, some sort of hit and run or something, and he had a head injury and he started walking off and died somewhere. Had a bruise on the brain. It starts bleeding. Pressure builds between your brain and your skull. And before you know it, your brain's not working anymore, and you kill over, and you're dead. It's Natasha Richardson. It's like the Natasha Richardson incident. She went skiing. She had wrecked. She hit her head. She felt fine. She kept skiing or didn't go to the hospital. In a few hours, she was dead because it was something that gradually built up. This could be the same way with Zachary Wilkes. My best guess, once again, knowing what I've read about this, and once again, there may be a lot of things that I don't know. It seems to me that the thing that makes the most sense is that it very well may be that somebody passed him and they, the person didn't want to stop because they caused an accident, and that person just kept on going. He flies off, gets out of his car, is disoriented, has a concussion or something even worse than that, and he doesn't know where he's walking, and he dies somewhere in around that area where his car wrecked. That's my best guess at this time. But there is so much wiggle room in all of that I would certainly have to know a lot more about all of that. A lot more of the minute details before I could even say that theory that I just proposed, would put any money on it. So, Jill, I hope that answers your question. Carrie says, straight to the source. And that is something that sets Unfound apart from others. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie says, it's super easy to miss a car off the road. We just had one in the KC area off a major highway that was there for several days. And Shady says, happy Hallows Eve to all. Thank you, Shady. All right, let's talk about this Friday's case. And we'll call it a night. So all of you can start putting out the candy and start putting your costumes on for Halloween. This Friday, we are covering the disappearance of Jael Hamblen. This will be Unfound's second trip to Alaska. Of course, the first one was way back in August 2017 with Aaron Gilbert. This is a case that also involves Anchorage. And this disappearance happened on October 12th, 2014. This episode is going to be called Pretty in Pink because Jael, shortly before she disappeared, had colored her hair pink. The guest for this episode, a little unique guest this week, is Jael's best friend's mother, Lisa Lake. And that may seem like, well, why are you interviewing her? Well, she has been the one who's mainly been responsible for getting all the information out about Jael since shortly, and you'll hear her talk about that, shortly after Jael disappeared. It kind of fell into her lap because, in her opinion, nobody else was doing anything, including Jael's own family. So she felt responsible, as did her daughter. Her daughter's name is Lane. So she has been doing this. Lisa is the one that is the administrator, the creator of the Facebook page for Jael's disappearance. And this is a person that Emily found because she does such great work. And was able to line everything up that we could make this interview happen. It's a long interview. It's about, well, not compared to the Steve Pankey interview, but it's about 2 hours long, 2.5 hours long. So you're going to have an episode this week that's, I don't know, 2 hours and 45 minutes, something like that. But there's a lot of information to go over. Lot. You're going to hear a lot about, you're going to hear something about planted evidence. You're going to hear a lot about some military members, men, not doing some things that they were doing. They shouldn't have been doing it, but they were. You're going to hear some things about prostitution. You're going to hear about polygamy. You're going to hear about a young girl, Jael, who kind of was, got caught up with some wrong people, including a woman who kind of wanted to take custody of Jael's son. So put that all together, you can see why this ended up being a 2.5 hour interview. Jael, Lisa, the guest, knew Jael fairly well. Jael, at a couple different times, had stayed at Lisa's house. And so she got to know her very well. And of course, like I said, her daughter was one of Jael's best friends. Some different suspects in this case, as you're going to hear. We don't know if it was somebody under the same roof where Jael was living, or it could have been somebody that Jael wanted to meet, some guy early in the morning, or a guy who was going to come over to her place. Those are all going to be all possibilities in this disappearance. Probably one of the, I have to admit that when I heard it, I thought of the Tom Brown case. You're going to have to determine whether some evidence that was found was planted. Was it coincidence that these particular people found this evidence? Or is it something else? And what I'm alluding to, of course, in Tom's case, Pine Gregory found the remains. Was that a coincidence? Or was it something more than that? In Jael's case, it's the same thing. The people who found her purse and her phone 6 months later, they just happened to be like 1 degree of person separated from Jael. And is that a coincidence? Once again, is it something else? It'll be up for you to determine that. Thank you, Shady, for all those compliments. Thank you. Michelle, your birthday is October 31st, Halloween. That's interesting. Okay. But that'll be this Friday's case. Jael Hamblen, Hamblen. You will find that case on the Charlie Project. You will find it on NamUs. And we talk about, I know many of you listen to Unfound in the car with your kids, and it is a PG rated program. It always will be. But there may be a couple things that we get into in this that I'm not sure you're going to want to try to have to explain to your young ones. Okay? Just a few moments that I don't know if you want to turn the volume down. It'll be up to you. But we do have to talk about those things in this episode because it could be an element of the disappearance. So that's what we have going on this Friday. So I think I'm going to call it in, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, let's just go through what we've covered tonight. We talked about the next 4 weekends, how I'm going to be playing some disc golf. Talked about this Monday, the Steve Pankey interview is coming out. Talked about the poll for the Squeaky Wheel Tour. I also talked about how that episode set a new download record for this week. Talked about the newsletter that's going to be coming out. Talked about some future episodes. We usually don't do that here, but we did it tonight. Told you about talking to Mary Lyle. And we also talked about Jake Sloane and how he was missing, and luckily he was found alive in New Orleans. I had a couple news items, but just going to pass those up for tonight. I took some questions from Laura, Karen, Dee, and Jill, including a question about my first gray hair. And then finally, as always, we always talk about this coming Friday's episode. This week it's Jael Hamblen. She disappeared October 12th, 2014 from Anchorage, Alaska. The guest is her Jael's best friend's mother, Lisa Lake. And this is an episode we are calling Pretty in Pink. So I'm going to leave it all there for all of you. I thank you all for tuning in tonight. Once again, as I talked about earlier, come and join us on Patreon. Come and join us in the think tank. It's $12 a month. That's $3 a week. And you won't just be able, this is more than just writing your opinions on a case in the discussion group or going to Web Sleuths or something like that. You can come in, voice your opinions, and those opinions and ideas go directly back to the guests for those episodes. Your opinions and everything can have an impact. So you only pay. This is the only place, only podcast, only show in the world, only program in the world that does that. Would love for you to be a part of it. So good night, everyone. Thank you all. Thanks. Oh, Full Metal. I didn't see you in there tonight. Okay, Full Metal. Good to see you. Good night, everyone. Have a great, great Halloween. See ya.